quickly give us like two tips on for the thing that hits you the most on why you should plan.
Oh man, listen. One of the reasons that you have to plan stuff out is because when you don't, you'll find yourself, even if something turned out right, you'll find yourself at a higher position or at another space, and then realize, man, I can't go to the next level because the stuff that I didn't do previously. So one of the things that you have to make sure you're doing is planning stuff out, because you'll end up setting yourself back by not doing that stuff ahead. And so, like, that's one key. That's one key of doing it, right? And the second tip of having organized plan is because it's structured.
Yeah.
Like, listen, look at your body. Yeah. Look at your body. Everything about the human body is structured. Your eyes ain't on your feet. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So because everything about our body is organized, so if we look within, everything without is the same way.
Exactly.
So I believe that the same things, when we look at ourselves within, we'd be able to emulate that on the outside. So if we look within and say, man, my body is organized, everything that I do about me is organized, why can't I implement that into the rest of my life? Because now, by having this organization within, when we see how smoothly our bodies operate, everything is an intricate system. It works together.
Right.
So now when we take that same mindset and apply it to different areas of our life, now we'll have that same result that our body is having. Things will run properly because it's organization. Those two steps that we have to do, we have to look at it like that.
Right. So one of the things I want to say to drive that home, that point, I look at it with nature. You know, trees can't talk, but they definitely can communicate to you if you pay attention. You know, when a tree starts out as a seed, you know, you give it the things it needs. It needs water, it needs sunlight, it needs soil, and it becomes what's inside of it. You know, it doesn't need anything. It doesn't say I'm going to wing it. Maybe I'll be an apple tree. Maybe I'll be an orange tree. It is what it is from jump. You know, and so a lot of us, we try to come out. You know, we get the things we need, but we have a mindset that can take you out of who you're supposed to be because of the things we can look around and see, okay, that person is making money doing this and that person is having fun taking trips, but what am I doing in my life? And we can get sidetracked. So the thing about planning is it keeps you, like you said, it keeps you structured. It gives you guidance. It gives you a hope that, hey, if I just follow this, you know, things may not always turn out how they're supposed to be, but you have something that'll help you get to your next level. And just like you said earlier, a lot of people want to skip. When you gamble, you're skipping through life. And then at some point, you're going to have to go back. At some point, you're going to have to go back and learn that lesson. You know, and so that was one of the things that really struck with me when I started to learn how to plan was, you know, we are creatures of habit, right? And it is difficult for us to just learn how to sit down, pen and paper or pen or tablet, whatever you may use, to sit down and say, you know what, this is something I want to do, whatever it is, whether it's your health, whether it's your finances, whether it's your mental health or mental stability, whatever that may be. Planning is one of the hardest things to do. But once you plan, the execution is easy.
Right.
You know, the execution is easy. And so one of the things that we talked about specifically, you know, we touched a little bit on it, but winging it, you know, first we're going to talk about, you know, how winging it can sometimes work. And then we're going to go into why you shouldn't try to look to that as a strategy with your life and with your dreams, with your ambition. So one of the things you talked about is what winging it is, how it can work. So I want you to touch on that for everyone that's watching. When you wing it, how it can work sometime, but, you know, definitely go into why you shouldn't do that as a strategy.
Okay. Right. So like, as we said at the beginning, right, you know, if you wing it, you rolling the dice.
Right.
And obviously we know sometimes when you roll the dice, it turned out good.
Right.
That's a gamble. You don't know. And obviously we don't know how things will turn out in our lives. But when we be strategic and we plan, we can minimize the losses. right? Of things not working out. So when you winging it, you kind of going on a whim. You don't know how it's going to turn out from the gate. So you
Right.
already going off in the situation like, I'm not sure how this is going to turn out. But see, when you plan, you're like, okay, the probability of this turning out in a good way is a little bit higher than if I just kind of went on a whim, because you don't know. And so that's on the good side. Like, it could turn out like you could be like, boom, I got it. I winged it. I didn't know what I was doing. I just kind of was all over the place. And guess what? Listen, even if you in a fight, right? You in a fight with somebody and they just swinging all over the place.
Right.
They can hit somebody and knock them out.
Right. Exactly.
But if a person is standing there and they like, all right, look, I'm going to do my training, and they stand there and they ready and they wait for the right opportunity, boom, they going to knock you out. Opposed to you were just all over the place with it. So you have a higher probability of planning things out, because now when you plan it out, you can actually look for your opportunities because they've mapped out. You're like, all right, this was my training, and now let me see where I can actually implement my training. And as I said on the last live, like you said earlier, you know, we creatures of habit, right? But as I always say, you fall back on what you know, not what you do not know. So if you didn't do no planning, if you didn't do no preparation, you don't have nothing to fall back on. All you have to fall back on is I wasn't ready anyway. But see, now when you was planning, you actually had the, okay, this didn't work out. Let me try this now. Let me maybe try this now. Okay, I had something planned out and maybe parts of it worked, but other parts didn't. Let me just tweak it a little bit. So as you were saying, you know, when we are trying to wing it, it could work out.
Right.
But us being intentional with our life, why would we actually want to do that?
Why would we take that chance?
Why would you take that chance?
Right.
That's like jumping in the pool and you know you don't know how to swim and saying, you know what, I'm going to take the chance of saying I'm going to make it to the other side. You don't even know how. You didn't do any preparation. You didn't do any planning. So your probabilities of failing is actually higher than if you plan something out. Because, again, you could plan something out and it could still not work out, right? But at least you have a structured system in place that you can say, okay, I tried this. It didn't work. Let me try something else and maybe try some of the other things that did work from plan A and implement this into plan B. That's some of the things that we can do.
Right. So definitely, man. So just to drive back the gamble part, personally, I don't gamble. I remember I had my last $40. I was in college, man, and we went to the casino and we went play roulette, I believe. And Red had hit 7 times in a row. Red hit 7 times in a row, and I just thought to myself, it has to hit black. No matter what, it has to hit black. I put a 20 down because I was like, I ain't gonna put the whole 40. I just put the 20 down, see if I could catch me another 20. It hit red again. Dude took the 20 so quick, I was like, hold on, okay. It hit red again. Now this one gotta be black. I get my money back and I'll just be on my way. It hit red again. It hit red again, and I'm thinking to myself, man, how could, 8 times in a row, well, 9 times at that time, 9 times in a row, you gambling with your life and you losing. And the way you're gambling, you're losing. I think about it like this. Okay, a couple years ago, I was listening to Earl Nightingale, and he talked about having a ship with no captain. If you start that ship up and you just let it run, 10 times out of 10, it's gonna end up shipwrecked. It's gonna wreck, right? And people don't understand that life does not stop. It does not stop. So because life does not stop, you're just like the person that has your life is the ship, but if you don't control it, it will crash.
Ooh, listen.
It will crash, and you can attest to that by the people around you. You can attest to that by the people you see out on the streets. Some people, life happens to them. I understand that. Believe me, I understand life happens. But a lot of times life happens to everybody. Life
Mm-hmm.
happens to everyone. And if we don't take that responsibility to say, hold on, I don't like the way my life is going. I don't like the place I'm in. I don't like my financial status. If we take the time to say, I don't like this, you have the power to change that at
Mm-hmm.
any moment. At any moment, you have the power to change that. And that comes through planning. Where do you want to be? What do you want to have? How do you want to be perceived in your own self? Not what other people think about you when you look in a mirror. Are you able
Right.
to say, I am somebody? I'm more than just what people used to look at me like, you know? And it is very key. Man, I think we're gonna have to release a small ebook on how to plan after this one.
Listen.
We will have to do that. So one of the key things key detriments. One of the key detriments that we're going to talk about next is why people don't plan. And I want to jump this one
Ooh.
off. Why people don't plan. Number one, you don't know how. Nobody taught us how to plan for our lives. No one ever sat down and said, okay, look, what do you want to be? What do you want to have? You had some people in school that would ask those questions, but after they leave, that was never a continuing conversation. It just happened. You know, people don't always come up and say, hey, I see you working hard. What do you want to have in life? What do you want to be? And they sit back and say, I just want to be happy. What does happiness look like?
Mm.
When you get it, how do you know that you have it? When you say, okay, I'm be happy when what? And this comes with planning, being specific. Planning is something you be specific about.
Right.
What? How do you know you'll be happy? So a lot of times we don't plan because we don't know how. And the second reason, and I'm gonna stop right here because I don't want to take all the reasons that I know of. The second reason is we are afraid to.
Mm.
It takes a lot to plan. It is, hold on. It is a mental struggle to plan. It takes a lot of mental work to plan because there's so many possibilities. It is very hard to zero in on one thing. And then once you reach that one thing, you're like, oh man, I could have done this. I could have done that. And then people get scattered. They get scattered brain again. And so now
Mm-hmm.
they're all over the place. They're all over the place trying to figure out, oh, well, what do I do? How do I get to the next level? And then they quit. They stop
Right.
planning. They stop moving forward, you know, and life still goes on. They're back in the same place they ended up before. And then now they're trying to move forward once again. So I want you to go into two of the things, maybe two or three, maybe one or two. It doesn't matter. What you think? Why people don't plan?
Okay, so you already kind of touched on something that I was going to say. Like you said, we wasn't never taught this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not taught something, then how can you ever do it? But how about this? You ain't never seen it. You ain't never seen nobody playing. You grew up in a household where everybody just did everything sporadically. So that's all you seen. You're a product of your environment. We be a product of our environment because we never saw it. So if I was never exposed to anybody planning out anything in their life, how could I ever plan anything?
Oh man.
I don't even know what planning looks like because I never seen it because I was never exposed to it. So why would I here's the thing. Why would I actually want to do it? I have no reason to do it.
None at all.
Because it's not even something that I'm challenged to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I can attest to this myself. I didn't grow up in an environment where people plan things out. The planning of your life was go get a good job.
Mm.
But what does that look like? Like you said, go be happy. Okay, what does that mean? That's like somebody saying, oh, I want to have money and then I'll be happy. Okay, that's a dark tunnel that you'll never get to the bottom of.
Mm-hmm.
You have to how do you actually scale that? Like you said, what does that look like?
Yes.
That ain't nothing tangible. You don't know how to actually put your hands on it because you've never seen it.
Right.
So I always say, like, if I ain't never seen it, why would I do it? Right? Because a lot of times people will say, well, I can't believe, here's the thing, I can't believe in something that I don't see.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I'm not even talking about on the spiritual tip.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe what I never seen. I never seen nobody playing in my life. Why would I do it?
Right.
I have no reason to, because now if I never seen nobody do it, guess what? It must not be important.
Mm.
So
it must not be important.
It must not be important. So now, I started to learn that, you know what? I have to be intentional about my life. Because, again, it's my life that I'm dealing with. And I have a wife and a daughter. So now it's not only my life, it's their life also.
Right.
So am I not only gambling my life, I'm gambling theirs. And how can they put confidence in me if they like, well, Pops don't know where he's going?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I think I'm better off going by myself because he don't know where he's going either.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to make a decision to say, you know what? Just because I didn't see it, don't mean that I can't do it. I didn't have my father in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know I didn't see what it was like to actually be a father or to be fathered. My mom was the mom and dad in my life, right?
Mm-hmm. So
I only know what that looked like. But that don't mean that I didn't have to learn how to be a father to my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I had to decide. You have to take the ownership and say, look, this happened to me, or I wasn't exposed to this, but this is what I'm going to do.
Yep. And you know what? I wanna drive in further to the things you said. The first being, although we did not see planning growing up, we didn't see certain things that'll help us to lead us to success. We have the tools now. And if you're on this live, if like what Bill Gates said, if you're born broke, it's not your fault. But if you die broke, it is your fault. You have the opportunity to make a decision right now to say, okay, I'm going to start planning so that my kids don't come to me and say, Mom, when they're 20, 30, 40 years old, still living in a house with you, and not to say nobody else to do that because everybody has their own struggles, but not knowing where they're going. You put them in the best position to win by doing what you said you were going to do, by you planning your life, by you showing them. And that takes time. It takes effort. But you know what? One of the things that really, really helped me is things are difficult until you start to do them. When you first learning something, it's a lot of brain power that goes into it. There's a lot of moving parts. But once your mind meshes with the information, it's easy. It's easy. A lot of times the work we do, I may come into like some of the people coaches. Let me say that much, right? I may not know how to navigate because we're on the same level. Coach is ahead, right? So for me to sit back and say, you know what, I think I can do this, it takes time for me to prepare myself. Big key, prepare yourself for where you want to be. Prepare yourself and prepare your kids, prepare your spouse, prepare your children, prepare, I said kids already, but prepare yourself for your community, for what you're going to be able to do. The second thing, I feel like I lost my train of thought. We're going so deep in this thing, just shooting fire, man. The second thing, I talked about why we would plan birthdays. I talked about this. We plan birthdays, we plan vacations, but we never plan for our life. And you said it is because it is not important. That is huge. Your life, your future, your decisions are more important. 360, those other 364 days, however long you decide that you're going to celebrate for your birthday, those days are more important because it shapes how your birthday will be. People quick to, let me hurry up and try to save some money the last 2 weeks and we're going to go out to dinner, we're going to do this. But imagine if you did everything you're supposed to do the whole year. You take trip out of the country, you stay at the finest resorts, you eat the best food, you have the best pictures, you shop anywhere you want. Total freedom. And that can be achieved through planning. And so one of the things that you talked about was on the phone Thursday is the downside of planning, which is people getting stuck. Trying to be perfect.
Yeah.
Trying to be perfect, trying to get it just right before they take action. So I want you to talk about that specifically. Why do people try to be perfect when it comes to planning?
Ah, man, listen, I just talked about this in my podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Progress, not perfection. You know, and sometimes we have that perfectionist mindset. Everything has to be to the T. Everything has to be right. And why do we feel that way? Sometimes we feel that way because we like, what's somebody else going to say about it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they going to critique it. And so if they critique, I don't want to give nobody the opportunity to dot my I's and cross my T's and pull my socks up. And so now by you actually saying, I need to make sure everything is precise, what happens is you can actually miss your opportunity for something because we all know you get more experience from actually doing stuff, right? Like I'll give you a prime example. I was in trade school, right? I was in school to be a mechanic. And while I was in school to be a mechanic, they said, look, you need to actually go out and go get a job at Pep Boys or something like that. Because what we're teaching you here, you need to be in a real life situation to actually know how to implement this stuff.
Right, right.
And, you know, I'm a firm believer in saying you don't actually know how to do something until you know how to fix it. Right? So, like, I started cutting my hair some years back, and I was like, man, I'm trying to get this cutting thing down, and I was cutting it good. I was all right? But it wasn't until I fixed what I messed up where I was like, I know what I'm doing. And so the downside of us planning and us trying to make things so perfect, we won't put anything out. And so now by us not putting anything out, we're not gaining no experience. We're not getting any feedback. And because actually our mistakes is what's going to make us better. Think about it. People that lose or people that say, man, I was working out and I ain't losing no weight, that's going to make you say, let me go a little harder. You go harder from the losses than you do the wins.
Yes.
Nobody wants to lose,
yes,
but you gain more from the losses than you do the wins.
Definitely.
Like we have some of our best thoughts, right? When we're going through some type of trauma or turmoil, I write music. I write music, right? But it wasn't until I went through a traumatic divorce in my previous marriage that I wrote some of my best music. It was that actual situation that helped me to be able to see the potential that I had in myself that I never thought that I had. So us being so perfect or trying to be, because guess what? We're not perfect. Not mind, not our words, our actions. We could never do everything perfect. The only thing perfect is a picture. And guess what? It's picture perfect.
Yeah.
But even if you look at a picture, you'll see the blemishes in it. If you look at it and critique it. So we have to understand the downside of planning or trying to make everything, you know, so perfect. It's like you missing an opportunity that could have actually came. Because what if you was actually creating something? And you came across somebody and they said, hey, I was looking for somebody that knew how to make a vegan cake. And you like, oh man, I know how to make them Jones. Oh, let me see some of your work. Oh, I ain't never put nothing out. Oh, I'm good.
On to the next.
Lost
Opportunity. Missed opportunity.
You missed opportunity. But you could easily say, oh no, let me show you some of the work that I actually have in my process of learning, my experience that I gained from actually doing it. So when we have that mindset of everything gotta be so perfect, we are holding ourselves back. And we're actually doing a disservice to ourselves and we're doing a disservice to the world because they don't have the opportunity of seeing what you could create. Because nobody can ever create what you actually had in your head.
Exactly. That's key to a lot of people because they figure just because someone else is in the same industry or they're doing something similar to what you're doing, you're not valuable. You know, all the space is taken up. There are millions of coaches. There are millions of speakers, but no one has your speech. No one is going to write your book. No one is going to write your song. No one is going to produce or create things that's within you. We are unlimited beings. We can get unlimited amounts of ideas. It's us being strategic about what we want to do, who we are, and putting that forward. And then we can gain those opportunities. So one of the things we talked about, what we're going to go into is how to plan. The base, that we're going to say that the very foundation of planning. And then we definitely going to have to come out with something like a quick ebook so we can distribute and help people plan for real. So one of the things I started off with is knowing what you want. But before I go into that, you had said knowing who you are is key to getting to knowing what you want. So I want you to go into that first. Before I jump into knowing what you want, I want you to go into that knowing who you are.
Okay, understand, when you don't know who you are, it's like you're a chameleon.
Mm-hmm.
You will turn and shape-shift into whatever your environment is when you don't know who you are. You know, I tell that to my daughter all the time. You got to be who you are, and you can't change your colors in the environment that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know who you are within you, within self. What it is, ask yourself those questions. And I'll be one to say, I didn't know who I was when I was growing up as a kid. I didn't know. I went to trade school because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I followed my sister. I was just latching on to what other people were doing. And so now I spent my life doing stuff that I had no business doing. I don't even like cars like that. Why was I in trade school to fix cars? Because I was being a chameleon.
Right.
I was changing to the situation that I was in. But once I actually, and I'm going to touch on it again, once I actually went through my previous marriage, right, it made me say, what is it that I want? What is it that I like to do? What kind of person do I actually want to be to the world? And so when I started asking myself those questions, I had to really sit back and think, what do I like, what I don't like, what I'm going to tolerate, what I ain't going to tolerate. Knowing who I was within me, it didn't matter what I was going through, good, bad, or indifferent. I am the same person. Now, it's not saying that you might not have an action that might go against what you actually do. We may have an action, we may have a thought, we may have this, right? Because we are not perfect. We may stray off, but that doesn't mean that that's going to change who we are. We got to know who we are, but we have to ask those questions. And again, we'll be in environments where nobody actually asked us who we are. What do you like to do? And then if you said, oh, I don't know. And when they said, oh, I don't know, they just left it like that.
Right.
Oh, you should go and think about it. All right. So what do I need to do? And so asking yourself those hard questions that nobody asked you, right? Because you have to care more about you than other people is going to care about you.
Right.
How can you expect anybody to do something or care about you and you don't even care about yourself that way?
Right.
And so the first thing that I tend to ask people when we're talking or even when I get into my coaching, right? I say, what make you you? That's a simple question that a lot of people don't have an answer to.
Right.
What makes you you? And so sometimes people might say, oh, well, making sure my family is good. But you didn't always have a wife and the kids and this and that. What make you you? Because, and the reason I ask that question is because if those things or those people are removed, does that mean that there's no you now? That is as simple as that. So you have to be your own individual, not attached to anybody or anything. First, in order for you to actually start planning your life out. And so, and that was hard for me. That was not something that I actually just was like, oh yeah, I did it. And look, I will look, and that's another part that we're going to get into, being introvert and extrovert.
Yeah.
Right? But I'll save that because I know we're going to get into that.
Yeah.
But that's something that you have to know who you are, and you have to ask yourself, what makes me me,
Hmm.
so you can actually start planning out your life.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. So you actually covered some of the things I was going to talk about when asking what you want. So one of the things with planning is knowing what you want and being very clear, right? Like we talked about earlier, you can ask people what do they want. They would tell you they just want to be happy. What does that mean? What does it look like? How do you know you have it, right? And so the very first thing people will start to plan out is how much money they can get. And that is a very logical, that's a very easy thing to start to plan out. And I want to say this just to throw this in there. Planning is mentally taxing. It can
Yeah,
drain your brain. It will make you
yeah.
tired. It'll make you want to quit. But that's the hardest part. Once you get through it, everything else is a lot easier to move along with. So knowing what you want, being very clear. For example, let's say you wanted to earn $100,000. It's very base. A lot of people say six figures and they really mean $100,000, right? You can start off, okay, well, how much you're earning now? How many more hours would you have to put in at work? What kind of side hustles can you get into that can allow you to still have time for your family? Because we don't want to count your family. Have time for your family, have time for the things you love, and increase your value so much that you can reach that 100,000. I can attest, and many other people can attest, $100,000 is not hard to get. It is not
No, it's
hard to
not.
get. When you start to plan your life out, when you start to know who you are and you build your value within yourself, your drive increases when you know what you want, right? So, quick story. I was I used to do Uber, right? And I remember it was August and I was going home around November. It was August. I was going home around November. So I told myself, you know what? I wanted to go home with it was like $2,000 cash in my pocket. That's what I said I wanted to go home with, right? Just wanted $2,000. So I sat down and I wrote down all of my bills. I wrote down how much I needed to make per night, how much I needed to make per week, including how much I would spend on gas, food, rent, light bill, everything. I wrote everything down. And once I broke it down, it's like, okay, every night I needed to earn at least minimum $180 every single night. And that goal started as I want 2,000. But then I was able to break it down into, okay, how do I hit 2,000? How do I get 2,000 saved up in my cash from between August and November? So once I broke it down to 180 a night, even when it got slow, I didn't quit because the goal, I already planned it out. The goal said you have to hit 180 in order for you to get to that 2,000. And I think a lot of people miss that step when they're planning, is that you have to break the goals down into targets, things you can get on a daily basis to help you get there. Like I know people with weight loss is a big one right now. You're not going to just drop all the weight at one time. There is eating right amount of water, right amount of exercise, having the right people around you. That is all
Yeah.
part of reaching your goal. But sometimes we take it as, I just want to hit this goal, and we never break it down. So knowing what you want, when you take a dive into really knowing what you want, you'll be able to break it down to smaller steps, smaller pieces, and you'll be able to get to it. And one of the analogies I like to live by is, I would ask myself, how do you eat an elephant? And that's one bite at a time.
Mm-hmm.
You take a huge goal, no matter what it is. You take a huge goal and you break that sucker up, it becomes manageable. Your life becomes easy because guess what? I already know. Planning allows you to know some things. I already know what I need to do today. I don't need to do everything today, just this step. And that makes it a lot easier for us to continue on. So now,
Now, I just want to touch on that,
okay.
that analogy that you said you used, right? Now, how about this? How do you fall asleep? Gradually. You
Yeah.
don't fall asleep instantly.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with us planning,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a gradual process.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be broken down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I take that, you know, one of my favorite movies is Fault in Our Stars. And they say that on there, you know, in a different context. But when we look at it like that, you know, sleep is something that you gradually go into. So if our life is something that we plan out, we'll gradually get to the places that we need to get at. It's not going to just, boom, happen. And I always say, nobody starts at the finish line. You don't. It's that simple.
Right, right. So now, look, we running along right now. Quickly, you did talk about introvert, extrovert. Real quickly, but definitely get to your point. I want you to drive that point home about planning when it comes to being introverted. And introverted means you are the planner and you're very, you know, organized, you're very structured. And then the opposite is extrovert, spontaneous, ready to go. And talk about that real quick, because we definitely
so
about to
real
hit that.
quick, you know, just getting into that, you know, and this is what I always do in the coaching program. You know, I have people take a personality assessment, right? A DISC assessment. Understand, if you are an introvert, you are more likely somebody that plans stuff out. You are strategic. You know, it got to be at the right moment, at the right place, the right time, right? It's planned out. It's easy for an introvert to plan, but an extrovert, I'll raise my hand, like myself, it ain't easy because everything is, all right, I have this idea. Boom, I want to get it done. Oh, I'll do a little bit of research on it, and then I want to go ahead and do it. But see, here's the problem with that. Being an extrovert, trying to get so many things done, you don't actually do the necessary steps in order for you to get the goal or the results that you could. See, it's not saying that it actually won't work out or you can't be successful doing that, but you could get better results if you actually plan things out. And I'll say that I am a person that's working on that. Like my wife is an introvert. She does a lot of the planning stuff, and she get on me like, yo, you need to be more structured with this. You need to plan this out. You need to. And when I was just like, oh, man, I want to go ahead and put this out. I want to start this, or I want to do this. I was doing all of these things. I was creating stuff. But then, as I said earlier, I had to go back and say, oh, man, if I would have just did a little bit more planning, I wouldn't even had to go back.
Right.
So those are some of the things that we have to be careful for, knowing our personality styles, if we're an introvert or an extrovert. And on the flip side of that, you know, being an introvert, you're planning things out, but don't allow that to hold you back. Don't allow that to be your reason for not actually doing and putting out, because now it's actually going against you opposed to working with you. And if you're an extrovert, know that, okay, that this is how I am. Okay, getting stuff done, putting stuff out, that works with me, but what works against me is I don't plan. So start doing, knowing the style that you are, and implement it little by little, step by step, and you will actually get to the place that you're trying to get to.
Perfect. So look, we got to wrap this up. We almost at the 50-minute mark, and it's so much more that we can say, but one of the things that we didn't get to talk about, which we'll have to make a separate video on just to distribute, is how to plan. You know, how to set your goals, how to break them down into steps, manageable steps, and to reach those goals. You know, having your accountability partners, having a clear goal. Let's be very sure, a clear goal, and to make sure that every time you hit a target, a milestone, you celebrate that. You know, that is a huge part of planning out, is celebrating. Whenever you reward yourself. Don't go overboard. You know, don't celebrate your first downs like they're touchdowns, but definitely celebrate yourself for your progress. So I want to thank you again, Vic, Mr. Mindful Minute, for coming on tonight. We're doing this every Monday, 6:30 Pacific time and 9:30 Eastern time. Next week, we will be talking about procrastination. And that is something I struggle with. That is something about 90% of the world struggles with, because we feel like we have time. We feel like things just we'll be able to get to it whenever we get to it. So, Vic, I want you to tell them quickly how to find you and a little bit about your coaching program.
All right, so where you can find me at on IG is Mr. Mindful Minute. Facebook, you can go to my business page, mindfulminute.gobegreat. My coaching program is Positive Mindset Development. It's called Grabbing Greatness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to help you actually change your views on how you see your problems in your life so you can actually shift that mindset and be able to continue to go be great because you are great. That's why my slogan is go be great, because greatness is within you, and I'm here to help you tap into that.
That's what I'm talking about. All right.
And then you can catch my podcast.
Yep.
You can catch my podcast. It's on Spotify, Applecast, all major listening platforms under Mr. Mindful Minute Podcast. If you go on YouTube, you can type in N2S Podcast and it'll pop right up.
Beautiful, beautiful. I want to thank you once again for coming on. Everyone that joined us, I want to thank you for being in. We definitely have to put together a very short video, not very short, but enough to where you understand how to plan. Because as much as all the things that go around it, why we don't plan, why we get stuck in planning, the different types of people we are, how to do it is another thing, and once we learn this, we can teach it to our kids. We can teach it to everyone else around us. So we're going to definitely get that video out. Probably going to record tomorrow. And try to get it out by Friday, a video of how to plan. And so I want to thank each and every one of you for coming on. We will repost this live. So if you miss anything, I'm going to try to go back through it and pick out the certain points, certain topics that we talked about, so nobody wouldn't have to watch the whole thing and, just get bored. We're going to pick out those specific places where we talked about some very hard-hitting points, and it'll help everyone. It'll definitely help everyone. So I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out, and I will see y'all next week. Procrastination. Someday we need to get off that island. So I'll see you guys. Thank you.
All right.